Welcome to the Mac's Future Weekly Podcast. All Apple talk and no chit-chat.
Okay, welcome to the Apple Podcast. This is Lex at MacsFutures.com. This is episode 108, and today is Saturday, March 10th, 2012, and this is the Apple Podcast by Lex at MacsFuture, and we have a lot to talk about. There's been great and all sorts of interesting Apple news and Apple announcements this week, so there's a lot to talk about, and we'll get right into it. Remember, this is a chit-chat-free podcast all about the Apple, Apple and its products and its apps and Apple News and that sort of thing. Any support you can give would be appreciated in the iTunes store. Any positive review would be greatly appreciated. So let's get into some of the top stories. Okay, so the big news this week came on March 7th, 2012. Apple, as long expected, had a big event at the conference center in San Francisco that it uses all the time. And it made huge announcements, and if you're an Apple fan, you probably know the announcements. And so the big thing, and here's a picture if you're looking at the video version of this podcast, I've got a screenshot here of Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, who was sort of the MC at the 1.5 hour event. And you can go to the Apple website, and I have a link under the show notes for this podcast to the video. So you can see if you missed the video of the announcement that Apple posted, you can go to my site and click the link, and you could see the presentation by Tim Cook and others at Apple, and it was very exciting. And so what did Apple announce? Well, the big thing that Apple announced is splashed all over the front page of the website. It's the new iPad. It's the third generation iPad. And it's just called the iPad, the new iPad. And if you go to the website, it says resolutionary. So as long expected, Apple announced the third generation iPad. This is on the second year, roughly about the second year anniversary of the launch of the first iPad. And so, I made some predictions and other people made predictions, and a lot of the predictions panned out. So what does the new iPad have? Well, first of all, the new iPad, I think, has four big things. And here are the four big things. First, it has a much higher resolution screen. The resolution basically doubled the y-axis and the x-axis of the resolution of the iPad 2 and the iPad 1, and it created quadruple the pixels. So the pixels are incredible, and journalists went to the event, and after the event, they got to play with the iPad 3. So how good are these pixels? Well, if you go to the tech site, the tech page of the iPad 3 on Apple's website, it's 2048 by 1536 pixels, which is 264 pixels per inch. Now, the per inch pixels are actually smaller than the iPhone 4 and the iPhone 4S, which are Retina screen, but they're saying that this screen is actually quite incredible, and that it is Retina display. Now, what is Retina display? When Apple launched the iPhone 4, it basically had over 300 pixels per square inch, and it said it was a Retina display. And what they said is that the pixel concentration on a square inch is so high that if you looked at it, you can't see the pixels, that it looks just like looking at some high-resolution photo in real life on paper, that it's at that distance that the iPhone is held from your face that you can't tell separate pixels. You can't see them. That if you had even more pixels per square inch, you couldn't tell the difference. Now with the iPad third generation, the new iPad, which is just called the iPad, Apple says that you get Retina display if you hold the iPad 15 inches from you. So it makes sense. If you get closer, if you put your eye right close to the iPad, you could probably see a pixel. But the point is, the big difference between the iPad 2 and the iPad third generation is that you've got 4 times as many pixels where there was 1 pixel. And so it apparently makes it stunning. And apparently nobody has ever done anything like this. So it's pretty incredible. Now, let's see. To get a sense of how many pixels we're talking about, which is 2048 by 1536, let's go to, if you go, I'm on an iMac, 27-inch iMac here. And if you look at my resolution capabilities of my 27-inch iMac, in some respect, it's very similar to the 9.7-inch iPad, because I can get 2560 by 1440. So in one respect, on one of the axes, actually the iPad has more pixels than the iMac. I guess it's on the iMac is the dimensions are different than the iPad. So I guess on the vertical dimension, the iMac has 1440, while the iPad, which is much smaller on its narrowest part, has 1536. I guess on the length part of the iMac, it's 2048, which is bigger. I'm sorry, 2560, which is bigger than the length of the iPad. But the point is, think about taking the resolution of your 27-inch iMac and squeezing it down and fitting all those pixels into just 9.7 inches. So that's incredibly, incredibly, incredibly dense. So Apple is saying, and people who were there, that it's stunning. That if you've ever seen this thing, it's mind-blowing. And so I think that's an important upgrade from the iPad 2. So what else? What else did Apple add in to the new iPad? Well, one thing that people were always complaining about with the iPad 2 was the cameras. Now, remember, the first iPad did not have cameras, and the iPad 2 has cameras. But the iPad 2's cameras, particularly for taking pictures, a lot of people complained weren't very good. It was halfway decent for taking video, but it wasn't really great for taking pictures. Well, Apple now added in a 5-megapixel camera on the backside, which is the side you usually take the pictures with, and they added a lot of the great optics and advanced optics that they put in the iPhone 4S. Now, the iPhone 4S has an 8-megapixel camera. So the megapixels are a little smaller, but the thing about the iPhone 4S, it has incredible advanced optics in it that makes you take great pictures. And also, for the video recording on the new iPad, it can now record in 1080p high-definition video. So this is pretty impressive. This is going to be a great device for now taking pictures as well as shooting video. So that's the other big thing. So what's the third big thing? Well, the third big thing is they upgraded the cell data connection option for the iPad. Now, the first iPad and the second iPad basically is divided into 2 halves. You can get a model with just Wi-Fi, which means just connecting to your local, Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi network. But if you wanted to pay per model $129 more, you could get a cell data chip in. First it was just AT&T, and then the last generation was AT&T or Verizon, and you can pay up, if you want to subscribe to a monthly or a pay-at-will plan, you can get cell data connection. Well, the iPad 2 cell data connection was at 3G speeds, and this one has 4G capability, or LTE. Now, LTE is the technology that both Verizon and AT&T in the United States and even Sprint are using. And so now you can get a iPad third generation that has an LTE chip in it, which would allow you which allows, faster data connections through a paid plan. But the way they did this 4G LTE data connection is that they also allow you, if you're in the United States, to take it overseas and use it overseas, like in Europe, with a 3G SIM card. So it's unlocked in the sense that if you buy the Verizon or AT&T iPad and go overseas and want to use it with like a European or Chinese, I guess, cell data plan, you can go buy a SIM card and stick it in there, and it will work. It will work. It won't work at LTE 4G speeds, but it will work. So that's a big upgrade. Particularly if you currently have an iPad 2 where you are on AT&T or Verizon and use it for a lot of cell phone data. That's a decent upgrade, because AT&T and Verizon aren't increasing the data plans in terms of the price, and you still get you get this faster 4G data. And now I'll talk a little bit more about that, but that's the third big thing. So what's the fourth big thing? Well, the fourth big thing that I think they added to the third generation iPad is some aspect of Siri, which is on the iPhone 4S. And when I say some aspect of Siri, they included, Siri has two aspects on the iPhone 4S. They included, on the iPhone 4S, Siri, one aspect is that built into the keyboard is the ability to dictate instead of type in anything that supports the keyboard. But the second aspect of Siri that everybody really focuses on the iPhone 4S is the ability to call up Siri, this sort of like robot, this woman robot, and ask Siri questions, and then Siri does stuff for you. So, for example, on the iPhone 4S, you can talk to Siri and say, find me a place to eat. And it'll go on, do a Google search, and come up with results. Or look for this. So here's the thing. For the iPad third generation, they included the part of Siri that allows you to dictate. So if you want, instead of type into your Twitter application, you can just dictate. Or if you want to type a memo, or if you want to type anything, you can just dictate. But it doesn't have the Siri part, the robot part. So I think these are the four big things that have been added to the iPad third generation. Now, but there's really something remarkable about it, which is they kept the same battery life, which is 10 hours. It says here, what is it? Up to 10 hours of surfing the web on Wi-Fi, watching video, or listening to music, and up to 9 hours of surfing the web using cellular data network. Now, what's incredible here is that was the specifications for the iPad 2. But here we're dealing with the third generation iPad that has LTE chips, fourth generation cell phone chips, and also a quadruple pixel resolution screen. And so what's amazing is they were able to keep the same battery life because 4G chips, LTE chips, suck up a lot of battery and power. And a lot of people think that the reason Apple hasn't brought 4G cell phone data connections to the iPhone yet is because the 4G chips that have been used in the Android phones suck the battery, and people are getting very short battery lives. And most people want decent battery life with their phone, and I think, the trade-off is they'd rather have better battery life than faster speeds on cell phone data. But somehow Apple did something amazing with their battery, and other people have said there's just incredible battery technology. And so that's impressive. Now, the thing is, though, it's a little heavier and a little thinner than the iPad 2, but it's still thinner and lighter than the first generation iPad. So here's the here's what it weighs. The Wi-Fi version now weighs 1.44 pounds, and the Wi-Fi and 4G version weighs 1.46. So it's a little heavier, and the depth is 0.37 inches, and so that's still pretty thin. Now, let's see if we can see what the iPad 2's. The iPad 2, let's see, they compare models. On their site, they've got a chart that compares models. And if you're looking at the video version of this, I'm showing you the chart. So how does this compare to the iPad 2? Okay, so the iPad 2 has 132 pixels per inch, and this has 264 pixels per inch. The iPad 2, its depth is 0.34 inches, and here you're adding 0.03 inches, so it's 0.37 inches. Or in millimeters, the iPad 2 is 8.8 millimeters, and the iPad 3rd generation is 9.4. So it's 0.6 millimeters thicker. Okay, so that's the guts of what I think are the key parts of the upgrade to the iPad, the 3rd generation iPad. Now, what about price? Now, here's the good thing. Price was also a big announcement because Apple kept the prices of the iPad 3rd generation to what the iPad 2's and what the iPad 1's prices had been. So they didn't go up. And what are those prices? Well, there's a selection tool, but here's how it goes. If you get a 16 gigabyte Wi-Fi, well, first divide it into Wi-Fi model or a Wi-Fi and 4G model. That means with cell phone data connection. So the Wi-Fi model comes in 3 sizes: 16 gigabytes, 32 gigabytes, and 64 gigabytes. And the entry price is $499 for the 16 gigabyte, $599 for the 32 gigabyte, $699 for the 64 gigabyte. This is the same thing that we had with the iPad, the 1st generation, and then the iPad 2. And then if you want the cell phone data, it's the same as before at $130 to each. So the 16 gigabyte becomes $629, $729, $829. And basically, when you select what you want, if you want the cell phone data one, then a little drop-down menu comes on Apple's site, and it gives you a choice of either the AT&T or Verizon. Now, in terms of price, another huge thing is Apple said it was going to continue selling the iPad 2, but only the 16 gigabyte version. And that's going to be its new cheapest iPad, the Wi-Fi version. It's going to be $399. So it dropped it in price by $100. And the 3G version drops from $629 to $529. So that's big because now and the iPad 2 is a great iPad. I mean, up until March 7th, it was the best iPad. But this gives an opportunity for people who really are in a tight budget and who are sort of balking at paying $500 for an entry-level iPad. Now they can get a brand new iPad, albeit an iPad 2, for the low price of $400. So that was also a big announcement. Now, in terms of buying it, it was interesting. Oh, there's another change too, which is Apple Care Plus for the iPad. Now, this is great. I don't know if you recall when the iPhone 4S came out, Apple changed the Apple Care for the 4S. And so you could no longer get just regular Apple Care. You got something called Apple Care Plus, which instead of going for $79, costs $99. But it gives you a big advantage, and that was for the iPhone 4S. If you during the life, and it would extend your warranty like the Apple Care from 1 year to 2 years. And if you broke for any reason your iPhone, like let's say it was your fault. Let's say in a fit of rage you took your iPhone and threw it to the ground and shattered it. Well, you could go into Apple with this warranty and just say, okay, I need a new one. And you only have to pay $50. And you could do that on 2 occasions. Now, Apple has brought that to the 3rd generation iPad. I don't think it's available for the 2nd generation iPad. But so it's the same terms, except Apple extended the warranty for the iPad 3rd generation by 2 years. Now, I'm a little bummed because I extended I just bought Apple Care, the old one, for my iPad 2, and it just extends the Apple Care for 1 year. So this is a pretty good plan because now, actually, no, I guess it does extend it only for 1 more year. I thought it extended it for 3 years. So I'm incorrect about that. So no, Apple Care for the iPad just extends it for 1 more year. So you get 2 years of coverage, and you can essentially, break it and just pay $50 to replace it. So that's also a nice little change. Now, in terms of ordering it, that day, it took a lot of effort. I bought a couple of iPads, and it took forever to try to get through the site. And in fact, the site kept failing. I would go to this, if you're looking at the video version of this, the selection, and I would go to checkout, and I couldn't check out. And ultimately, I also tried it on the Apple Store application on my iPhone at the same time, and that would constantly fail. And I guess it was just incredible demand. But ultimately, it was through the app on my iPhone that I was able to get my order through. And so I didn't say, like, the way this works is Apple announced that the 3rd generation iPad will be available in stores on March 16th, the Friday. So that's this coming Friday. And you can pre-order on Apple's site or through the Apple's app and have it delivered on Friday the 16th, so you don't have to wait in line. And they did that with the first iPad. The first iPad you could pre-order, and it was delivered to you the day it would be available in stores. For the second iPad, they didn't do that. In the second iPad, they allowed you to order early in the morning that the day they launched it. I think it was March 11th, and then at 5 p.m. that day they were selling it in stores. So there's no way you could order it and get it before it was the same day it was being sold in stores. So for the second iPad, I waited in line to get the second iPad. So here they're going back to the first model. And what's interesting is by now you cannot get it delivered anymore on March 16th. The earliest you can get it is for it to ship by March 19th. And that, I don't know then when you're going to get it if it ships by March 19th. And overseas, it is I think delayed now by a couple of weeks. So in terms of where it's being sold, Apple is selling it, I believe, in 10 countries. Let's go to the press release. Let's go to the if you're looking at the video version of this, I'm going to the site map, and excuse me, and they have for investors, let's see, well, basically it's like 10 countries. If we go to public relations, here we go. Apple launches iPad. That was their press release, and they say it's going to be available in 10 countries. And here are the countries. They'll be available on the 16th and to be delivered on the 16th to Australia, Canada, France, Germany, Hong Kong, Japan, Puerto Rico, Singapore, Switzerland, the United Kingdom, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. So I don't think they did that last time. Oh, And one other big addition is that Apple announced that the new iPad, as opposed to the iPad 2 or the iPad 1, will support Wi-Fi hotspot. That means if the carrier supports it, then you can take your cell phone data connection and turn it into a Wi-Fi hotspot that 5 other devices can use. So that's pretty cool. So now what's interesting is people contacted AT&T afterwards and Verizon said it would support the Wi-Fi hotspot and not charge extra under its plan for that, while AT&T did not indicate that it would support the Wi-Fi hotspot. So I got the Verizon version of the iPad. Now, I mean, I didn't know about that they were going to support the Wi-Fi hotspot. I got it because, as you may know from my prior podcasts and my blogs posts, I'm very unhappy with AT&T. I think AT&T is sleazy with its throttling policy. I have an unlimited plan, and also, you know, where I work, the AT&T connection is very poor. So, anyways, so that's it. So, look, if you're interested in getting it, I would order it now, or go stand in line on the 16th. Okay, so Apple also announced upgrades to a couple of its apps that run on the iPhone and the iPad, but also announced a new app. So, you know, so let's talk about it. Okay, so the new app that Apple announced for both the iPad and the iPhone, and I think it also works on the iPad 2 and maybe even iPad 1, is iPhoto. And it's only $4.99, and it looks amazing. Okay, and basically, you know, there's already like a photo app on the iPad and the iPhone, and also a camera app, but the photo app is kind of limited. You know, you can do very limited editing and very limited organizing. But some of the cool features of the iPhone iPhoto app. By the way, to get this on your iPad 2 or iPhone 4S or 4, you have to upgrade to iOS 5.1, which was also released on March 7th. But there's cool features. Basically, you can now edit your photos. There's a lot of you know, editing features. There's repair brush. There's a red eye brush. There's a saturated brush, there's a desaturate brush, there's a lighten brush, there's a darken brush, there's a sharpen brush, and there's a soften brush. So you have much more features in terms of editing your photos, and also into organizing and picking them. You can, it says here, you can, with iPhoto, you can have a scrollable, you have scrollable thumbnail grid. Lets you quickly breeze through the pictures. You can compare multiple pictures side by side. You can select favorites and hide so-so shots in one swipe. So there's much better organizational tools than what you can do in the current photo app. You can also, it says here, double tap an image and it'll automatically select similar photos in your library. So this is pretty crazy. Think about this. This feature is sort of like artificial intelligence. So you just double tap a photo and it quickly organizes other photos that look similar. And then it says you can compare lookalike shots side by side, mark your favorites, and flag photos. So that's really cool. The other cool thing is that various swipes can adjust things in your picture. So, you know, like you can swipe a certain way and it affects the saturation. You can swipe an area like the sky, and I guess it'll figure out it's just the sky that you want to edit, and it'll just change that background so you can make the sky bluer, you know. And this is really powerful stuff. So it's people, you know, the demo of it was pretty impressive, and it's only $5, and it works on older. It works on the iPhone too. You know, the thing is you got to upgrade to 5.1. So My iPhone and iPad are both jailbroken at this point using, I guess, 5.0.1 of the iOS. So I bought the app, but I can't install it because it needs 5.1. So just keep that in mind. Apple also announced significant upgrades to both the Garageband app and the iMovie app. And I got a chance to play around with the Garageband app, and GarageBand still costs only $4.99. And these upgrades also work on your iPhone. And look, I'll tell you, one of the coolest things, well, first of all, they added, in terms of the smart instruments, they added string instruments. So now you have like a string orchestra that includes, violin, bass, cello, and some other instruments. So it expanded the whole string instruments. But I'll tell you, the coolest thing that's in the upgrade is something called Jam Session. Now, this is incredible. Basically, through either Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, your GarageBand app can now connect with 3 other iDevices, either iPhones, iPod Touches, or iPads that are running the upgraded GarageBand, and they can have a jam session. And basically, the person who initiates it is the band leader, and the jam session, if you want to, will be recorded on the iPad of the band leader. And this is incredible because it's all happening wirelessly. Now, I experimented with my iPhone and iPad 2 over Bluetooth, and it was very easy for them to discover each other. And it was pretty incredible. Like, you could play one instrument on one iDevice and play another instrument on another device, and it's played together, and it's recorded. And you can do this, you can have 4 people playing instruments together. So, I mean, kids are going to have a blast with this. They had a video that shows this, and it's pretty cool. It's it shows like 4 adults, young adults, sitting around. One guy's playing the guitar, another guy's playing the drums, and I'm not sure what other instruments the other people are playing, but it's all being like recorded on like one app. So that's pretty cool. And they also, I guess, added some, recording features that make it easier. Now you can merge tracks together, which it's becoming more like a music editor on the Mac. You can merge tracks together. You can send it over to iMovie. I think you could do that before, but it's pretty cool. So, I mean, to me, it's the jam feature that's just amazing. The string instruments sound good too, but you should definitely, if you have GarageBand, you should definitely upgrade. And you don't need version 5.1 of iOS to upgrade. So I was able to upgrade GarageBand. Okay, so they also updated the iMovie app for the iPhone and iPad and iPod Touch. And they've made that even more powerful. And so if you already have it, it's a free upgrade. You do, though, have to have iOS 5.1. So I was not able to upgrade because I don't want to get rid of my jailbreak. But they added some, more in-depth features. For example, now you can, just like iMovie on the Mac, you can create Hollywood-style trailers. So they give you these templates that are similar to, the trailers you see in the movies. And you can pick from 9 trailers and take your pictures and videos and create your own sort of, trailer. Now, I used to play around with that on the Mac on the iMovie, and that was a lot of fun. But also, since you've got this great camera for making movies, they've given you tools. So you can pick a theme now for your movie, and I guess it'll give you templates. And you can also build your own templates and say, I want this kind of shot, I want that kind of shot. And, they have a panning effects, face detection, and, graphics. So it's a real major update. I haven't fully explored it. They also add more sound effects, or they add sound effects. I don't think they had sound effects before. And you can, I'm not sure what sound effects they have, but they definitely added some sound effects. And, you know, the editing, I think, has gotten better. So you want to, look, if you've got iMovie, upgrade if you can go to 5.1. But, you know, it's pretty impressive. And particularly because now you've got this great camera in the iPad. Think of your iPad now as like a high definition movie camera, and you've got this big screen so you can watch what you're shooting, and then you're going to be able to edit it all in iMovie, and iMovie becomes like more powerful. So, you know, this is another great upgrade, and it further sort of proves that the iPad is becoming a sort of standalone computing device where you can create content as well as watching it. Okay, so also as expected, Apple announced an upgrade to the Apple TV. Now, it's not a TV with a big screen. It's essentially the same as the prior Apple TV, but with souped up innards. So it looks the same, and it costs the same amount of money, $99. But here's the big difference. It can now handle 1080p HD. So high definition, true high definition video is now going to be available on the Apple TV, which means also high definition TV 1080p is now available in the iTunes store. So Apple announced those hand in hand. So this is, you know, this is a great update. They also tweaked, they did an upgrade to the iOS for Apple TV so that now the screen is more like, you know, the screen you see on an iPad. You've got basically like tiles that, you know, like icons for the different apps that you can do. So other cool things are that they added, you can now, you could get Netflix before on the Apple TV, but now you can, if you don't have an account, you can subscribe to Netflix using your Apple iTunes account. So that's actually a huge for Netflix, because I'm sure they're going to get a lot of people. And it's interesting because in some ways you thought that Apple was a competitor to Netflix in the sense that Apple is also in the movie selling business. The difference is Netflix is a subscription model where you pay a monthly fee, like I think $7 or $8 a month, and you get streaming content. Apple sells. Apple doesn't stream like on a subscription basis. Apple sells or lets you rent on a one-time basis for content. So what's interesting is I think that Apple will eventually acquire Netflix because, you know, Apple is integrating Netflix more and more into its stuff. I mean, Apple TV now, the fact that you can subscribe to Netflix through iTunes, maybe Apple will purchase Netflix, which I think is very feasible. And the other stuff is still there. You've got Flickr, you've got Major League Baseball TV, NBA, NHL, Vimeo, YouTube, Wall Street Journal, your photos. Now, what's also interesting is that the movies that you buy through iTunes will be available in iCloud, in your iCloud account. And also iTunes Match will, if you bought a DVD and you have like that digital version of that on your disc and brought it into iTunes, that'll be uploaded into iCloud, I guess, or matched in iCloud. So it's pretty cool. So that's, you know, if you didn't get an Apple TV before, you should consider getting it. Now, what's interesting is I have an Apple TV. I have actually the first generation, the second generation. This is the third. I'm not going to upgrade because my second generation, I don't have a true 1080p TV. Both TVs that I have in the household, I have one of the earliest plasma TVs, and that's 720p. And I have in my bedroom like a 37-inch TV, and that's not 1080p, that's 720p. And that's fine for me. So if I ever get a 1080p TV, I will probably upgrade to the Apple TV, the new one. It's only $99. Now, they didn't do something that I was hoping they would do. They didn't build in a Wi-Fi router into the Apple TV. I last week said that would make great sense. Actually, no, I wrote a blog post I didn't say it in the podcast, but I had a blog post. Let's go to my website here, maxfuture.com. And let's see, I wrote a blog post that said, well, did I? Here it is, Apple TV and Wi-Fi router. And now, I wrote this before it came out, but what I wrote is Apple TV and Wi-Fi router, the next Apple TV. Many people expect Apple to announce a new Apple TV on March 7th. I don't expect it to be a full-fledged TV with a monitor. Instead, I think the Apple TV will be in the same form factor as the current one with a more powerful processor and video card. It will probably play 1080p video, but I also think Apple may release an Apple TV that is also a Wi-Fi router. Why would Apple do that? Apple should do that as one of the great features of the Apple TV is AirPlay. AirPlay allows iOS devices to send over content or mirror their screens over a Wi-Fi network. This is great not only for consumers in their home, but also businesses, business people, or attorneys making presentations. The problem is for AirPlay to work, you need not only an iOS device and the Apple TV, but also a Wi-Fi network. That means you have to carry a third device like an Airport Express. Apple can solve the problem and make AirPlay more elegant by building a Wi-Fi router into the Apple TV. That would be easy to do. Just combine the guts of an Airport Express with an Apple TV. Consumers would like it also, as it would simplify their home setup for internet and Apple TV. But the bottom line is they didn't do that. Basically, the Apple TV just has a much more powerful chip. It's got the A5 chip in it, and it, you still get content over to it either by having your Mac share, what's in iTunes with it, or using AirPlay to send video over from an iDevice, or mirror. If you have the iPad 2 or the new iPad or the iPhone 4S, you can mirror your screen to the new Apple TV. So that's it. That's a nice little upgrade. Frankly, the Apple TV is an accessory to the iPad. I mean, I think if you've got an iPad and you've got a TV, you should get an Apple TV, because this mirroring function and AirPlay where you can send over stuff is truly, truly powerful. And you can do all sorts of cool things like play games together on your big screen TV from your iPad, watch a movie on your TV through your iPad. And that's all done through this $99 device. As TUAW.com reported, Apple also released updates to some other apps. For example, the iBooks app, which is, the e-reader and bookstore for Apple, has been upgraded to version 2.1. And according to TUAW, its major upgrades are it's a redesign to support the new iPad Retina display on a new iPad, and it adds features that lets page numbers correspond to the printed editions. And it says this only works on some titles, but obviously the feature will be spreading to more publications. One other cool feature to the iBook Store is you can now search for a page number and jump to it with a single tap, and you can use your finger as a highlighter when swiping over text. Now, Find My iPhone has also been updated to support the Retina display, and so it's just sort of a technical upgrade, but that's a great free app from Apple. Okay, so one thing you should keep in mind when deciding what new iPad to get is how much storage you want. And Macworld.com had a great story on March 9th by Lex Friedman. He wrote, I think, one of the best interesting articles about the new Retina display on the iPad 3rd generation. And he has an article entitled Retina Display Ready Apps and the Coming iPad Storage Crunch. And he makes a good point, which is, the developers who want to have apps both on the iPad and iPad 1 and iPad 2 and iPad 3, they're going to have to add pictures for the app that scale up to 2048 by 1536 pixels. So in the app package are going to be higher resolution pictures that are used for the interface of the app that you use. And Lex Friedman's point is that they're going to balloon the size of the app sizes, because the apps that you download range in size. Like I was just checking on my iPhone, and I've got some apps that take up very little data space. I don't know, like 1 megabyte. And then I checked. I had this one game called Rage HD. It's like a shoot 'em up game, and this game took up 2 gigabytes on my iPhone 4S. So you can have a real range. But what Lex Friedman is saying is that with this higher resolution, the apps are going to get bigger, particularly the universal ones, because even if they're designed to run on an iPhone 4S or an iPad 2, they're going to have all those pictures in there. So it's going to take the app sizes are going to get greater. And he's already done a little bit of analysis. He pointed out, because Apple's already released upgrades to some apps that'll work on the Retina display. And so, for example, the Keynote app went from 115 megabytes to 327 megabytes. The Numbers app went from 109 megabytes to 283 megabytes. Now the iMovie app went from 70 megabytes to 404 megabytes. So it's 6 times larger than before. So his point, Lex's point, is that, if you get a 16 gigabyte iPad, or if you have one, you may suddenly find that your space is much less after you upgrade these apps. So also, Apple increased the download size of apps on cell phone data over 3G or LTE to 50 megabytes. And Lex Friedman's colleague Serenity Caldwell wrote about the impact on that increase. And she said, it provides examples of other apps that swell in size with Retina-ready graphics. And, she points out that a smaller app like Tweetbot went from 8.8 megabytes to 24.6 megabytes. So, look, my advice, honestly, if you use your iPad a lot and you use it, if you have a lot of apps and you're going to be shooting video and photos, I'd get the 64 gigabyte, and it's going to be kind of expensive. I think the 64 gigabyte with the cell phone is $829. But I think they make a very, very valid point, is that the apps are going to get bigger in size and you're going to have less room on your 16 gigabyte or 32 gigabyte iPad. Now, Apple didn't go to a 128 gigabyte iPad, I think, because I think the prices are still too high for that kind of storage, and Apple didn't want to raise the prices. But be very mindful of that when you decide what size iPad to get. Okay, so one troubling thing about all these announcements was that in releasing the iOS 5.1 upgrade for the iOS devices like the iPhone and the iPad, Apple, and really AT&T probably got them to do this, did something I think incorrect, and frankly, my view is AT&T is kind of sleazy. If you have an iPhone 4S which runs on AT&T's HSPA Plus network, suddenly that little indicator in the top left of your iPhone 4S that says 3G switches to 4G. Now, I was listening to Leo Laporte on MacBreak Weekly, and he did his podcast during this as he upgraded his phone, and he thought suddenly he had 4G connection. And the thing is, you don't have a 4G connection. What's going on is AT&T is claiming that its HSPA Plus, which it's had all along with the iPhone 4S, is technically 4G, but it's not 4G, and actually nothing's really 4G that's out right now, because real 4G is supposed to be at least 100 megabytes per second down. But clearly, HSPA Plus is not LTE, which is the next generation cell phone connection that Verizon, AT&T, and Sprint are going to that has the faster connection. So this is highly misleading. Some people are going to think that the iPhone 4S runs on 4G. It does not run on 4G. It runs on HSPA plus, and is backward compatible with lower cell phone data rates. So it's very, like the Verge.com wrote, yep, it is really just as a deeply misleading label change. Our network speeds here in New York remain just as sadly not LTE as ever. So look, shame on you, AT&T, and shame on you a little bit, Apple, for going along with this, because I think it's just incorrect and highly misleading to consumers. Now, the iOS 5.1 upgrade for the iPhone as well as the other iDevices did have some fixes in it, and it had a particularly good fix for people who are using the iPhone 4S in China on China Mobile. Now, iPhone 4S or 4 is not officially sold by China Mobile, but there's millions of people using it, or lots of people using it on China Mobile, and they were having problems with it, and this solves it. Now, the iOS 5.1 upgrade for the iPhone as well as the other iDevices did have some fixes in it, and it had a particularly good fix for people who are using the iPhone 4S in China on China Mobile. Now, iPhone 4S or 4 is not officially sold by China Mobile, but there's millions of people using it, or lots of people using it on China Mobile, and they were having problems with it, and this solves it. Now, the great website ArsTechnica, which has great analysis of computer and technical things, had a really good article by Charles Jade entitled 10 Disappointments with iOS 5.1. That's the recent upgrade. And hopefully Apple's listening. The top 10 that it has are pretty good. It points out that system requirements, one thing that's annoying is that whenever you type a URL in Safari on an iDevice, you see a short pause or a second or third letter as browsing history is searched. And so they're saying that, this causes performance complaints. The other thing is there's still no file management. You can't save to a specific thing. Basically, you have to use Dropbox if you want to save. Well, you can't save to Dropbox, but you can get stuff from Dropbox if you want to share stuff across different devices. No, actually, that's not true. Some apps allow you to share to Dropbox. But it would be nice if Apple had something. I mean, Apple has iCloud, but that's not sharing into a folder. That's just sort of seamlessly syncing among apps. But what if you wanted, to share a document you created in Pages with another document, with another app that can open a document? Well, you can't do it through iCloud. Syncing, and it pointed out there's still problems with syncing. For example, if you delete a contact or a calendar event, it's deleted across all your devices. But if you delete a podcast and it's also in iTunes as being in the things that you want to sync with your iDevice, it'll reappear. So it would be nice if you could set it so that it would override. If you delete it on your iDevice, it then goes over and deletes it on your computer. Now, how about mail? It says there is still no junk mail filtering in iDevice, iOS, and they say, why can't it be done on the server side? And it says in the notification center that the clear button is so small and difficult to use, and that should be made bigger. In messages, it does make a valid point. If you use iMessages, it treats the same person who's using different emails or different phone numbers to send stuff as being sources from different people. It would be nice if you could say, no, iMessage, if my wife sends me, let's say on one device she's using her Gmail, and another one she's using her phone number, but in my contacts know that it's her, it collapses it into one. That makes total sense. It points out that the PhotoStream was upgraded so you can now delete photos from PhotoStream, but you still can't share PhotoStream website to anybody. That would be nice. the App Store points out has something very annoying. If you ever bought an app on your iDevice through the App Store, once you buy it and download it, you're then taken out of the App Store because it takes you to where the page on your iDevice where you're downloading. It would be nice if you want to buy a whole bunch of apps or selectively. I know sometimes like I don't want to upgrade all my apps, but just 4 or 5. Well, when I do that, I have to go back 4 or 5 times to the App Store to download them. They also point out there's nothing on screen to show that you're muted. You have to look at the hardware on the side to see if you're muted. You still cannot delete standard apps that come from Apple, like the weather app or the stock app, even if you don't really use it. Let's say you downloaded your own paid app. And so I think those are good. I mean, look, Apple is probably going to come up with iOS 6. They're probably going to announce it soon. And then, I don't know, maybe in the summer they'll announce it and then release it to the public in the fall when the iPhone 5 comes out. ArsTechnica had another interesting article by someone named Lizchik von Beenum. It says iTunes 1080p video looks better, save space using H.264 compression. So Apple's now releasing 1080p video both for your iPad and for the Apple TV and the iPhone. And the question is, it's obviously higher quality. Is it going to be massive in size? And what this ArsTechnica writer found is that it's not doubling the file size. They actually, it's not that much bigger. So for example, the 1080p version of a movie that's 1080p was 1.75 gigabytes, and the 720 version was 1.45 gigabytes. So that's not much bigger. And he points out that the reason is the codec, the compression, the H.264 compression that Apple's using. And he basically says Apple's using this really good compression technology that doesn't greatly increase the file size when you go from 720p to 1080p. So that's good to know that we're not going to have a lot of less storage because we're using 1080p. Now, Electronista reports that the iPhone has become the biggest selling cell phone in Japan, and that's pretty impressive because it's out in Asia, and you would think that Samsung or from Korea or some other Asian company would dominate there. But it says now in Electronista that Apple now has the top-selling cell phone of any kind. It's not just smartphone, any cell phone in Japan. And they say that the iPhone 4S launch helped Apple claim 26.6% of all cell phone shipments in the country this fall. So it says it may have been the first non-Japanese company to top local ranks, which ending a long-standing emphasis on local makers. So that's pretty impressive, Remember when we used to be worried that the Japanese were taking over America? Well, it looks like Apple's taken over the Japanese cell phone market, so that's pretty impressive. Now, one of the reasons I won't upgrade my iPad 2 or iPhone 4S to iOS 5.1 is because if I did that, I would lose the jailbreak. And if I lost the jailbreak, then I won't be able to put some jailbreak apps like Display Recorder, which allows me to do video screencasts of what's on my iDevice. And I got all excited, actually, earlier this week because a number of people, including TUAW.com, reported that the iPhone dev team, they're one of the groups that are good at finding ways to jailbreak Apple's devices, and so you can put third-party apps that aren't through Apple's App Store, that they have updated something called Red Snow to support tethered 5.1 jailbreaks. But what I missed in the announcement was that the tethered jailbreak supports non-A5 devices, and the problem is the iPad 2 and the iPhone 4S have A5 chips on them, processors. So basically, if you've got an older, like a first-generation iPad or an iPhone 3GS or 3G, you can jailbreak your phone even when on iOS 5.1. The problem is it's a tethered jailbreak, and that's not the best kind, because tethered means if you shut down your device and you want to restart, you have to be connected to the computer to reboot it as a jailbreak device. But look, I think these people are very crafty. The iPhone dev team and other jailbreakers are very crafty, and I'm sure that at some point they'll find a untethered jailbreak on 5.1 for all devices. So we'll have to see. Now, one thing that's annoying about the App Store, whether on the Mac or the iDevices, is that you can't get free trials of apps. And Cult of Mac reports in an article by Alex Heath on March 9th that may be changing, and it has an article entitled Apple Hints at Free Trials in Apple Store with New to iTunes Terms and Conditions. And it basically says a recent update to the iTunes Terms and Services adds an interesting clause regarding free trials. And I'll read it to you. It says, certain paid in-app subscriptions may offer a free trial period prior to charging your account. So it goes on, if you decide you do not want to purchase the in-app subscription, turn off auto-renewal in your account settings during the free trial period. So I think that's coming. That's kind of good news. So you're going to be able to subscribe, let's say, to a magazine or something. But I wonder if they'll have free trials for apps. So I don't know how they would do that for this. This appears to be more for subscriptions like magazines and newspapers. So, but I think that's a nice feature, and I think we should get it. All right, so good news for Apple and the enterprise. ArsTechnica pointed out that Apple has released a new tool, a new configurator tool, which people who are in the enterprise and work in the IT department can use to configure all the iPhones, iPads, or iPod Touches that are in the business. And this replaces something that was before called the iPhone configuration utility, and did the same thing, but had many limitations. And so basically, according to the description from Apple, according to this blog post by ArsTechnica, IT staff can create and restore from a backup of pre-configured settings and app data, as well as create and install configuration profiles among a number of other set-top options. Administrators can also supervise devices and organize those into custom groups, restrict which computers they can sync with, and add common configurations automatically. And that admins can even apply custom text, wallpaper, or pictures to the iOS device lock screens. So that's pretty powerful. So this is going to be a powerful tool. And I think, one of the big areas for expansion for Apple is in the enterprise. And so the more tools Apple can give the IT departments to control all the devices in the business, the more likely Apple will be able to convince enterprises like government and big business to adopt the iPad, the iPhone, and the iPod Touch, as well as the Macintosh. The final story comes via TUAW.com. It's a rather poignant story by Stephen Sande, dated March 9th. And apparently here in New York City, there was a memorial for Steve Jobs in Tompkins Square Park, which is in the East Village. And it says here, in November 2011, a Dawn redwood tree was planted in Tompkins Square Park in the East Village section of New York City in a memorial to Steve Jobs. And it was done by workers for Bette Midler's New York Restoration Project. And a one-line memorial has just been added to a plaque dedicating trees to other notables. And it says, in honor of Steve Jobs, stay hungry, stay foolish. And now on a post, it says here in the article on E.V. Grieve, somebody wrote, I like this. The Macintosh empowered creative people and gave expression, connection, and life to an entire community that would otherwise have been ignored by the big computer and software companies. For this, we can thank Steve Jobs, and planting a beautiful redwood tree in our park that has lost too many trees this year seems humble and appropriate. Somebody else, though, posted something that was not as favorable. But look, I think it's appropriate and very nice, and a nice way to end today's podcast. So thanks for listening to episode 108 of the Apple Podcast. This is Lex at MaxFutures.com. Remember, this is a chit-chat-free podcast all about Apple, Apple news, Apple apps, Apple devices, and, it's all Apple. So thanks for listening, and see you next week.